Well, good morning. Can I get a motion to reconvene in open session? Moved by Councillor Shantz, seconded by Chair Redmond. All those in favor? That's approved. Thank you. We're now reconvened in open session. Before we begin, we acknowledge as a board that the land on which we gather today is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Neutral people. We acknowledge the enduring presence of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today, their achievements and their contributions to our community. We offer this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples. Any declarations of pecuniary interest from the board? Seeing none. Closed session recommendations, there are none. Consent agenda items 7.1 to 7.9. Karen, Quigley Hobbs, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chair, given the length of the agenda, I'm wondering whether or not, as we see these reports quarterly, if we could move 11.25.
Okay, and it was a very full meeting this morning. And do I have a seconder for that? Jim seconds that. Any comments? If not, we'll look forward to seeing that report in the presentation at our next meeting. All those in favor? That's passed unanimously. So there's no business arising, correspondence, police service reports. So we are under Chief of Police reports and we referred 11.1 and 2. So we're on to 11.3. which is dynamic staffing project. And there was a motion at the conclusion of this. I think we're joined by Mark Bryant, our consultant, but Chief, I think you have some comments to start us off.
Good morning, Chair McLean, members of the board. Yeah, very proud to kick off a number of presentations that all comprise conversations about staffing, priorities, and really to our budget presentation today. So introducing from the organization ORH, Mark Bryant and John Mobbs. Also joining is Mandy Williams, and she'll also be assisted, I believe, by John Fast as well. So I'll turn it over to Mandy, if they're otherwise over to our consultants. But okay, we're going to go directly to our friends from ORH, over to Mark to provide an overview of the staffing plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. And just attempt to share my screen again. PowerPoint, yeah. Hopefully you can see a presentation there. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for the opportunity to give a brief summary of the work that we've been doing with Waterloo Regional Police Service over the last 4 or 5 months. Just start off with a couple of slides of introduction. We work for an organisation called ORH. We're an analytical consultancy firm. The vast majority of our clients are emergency services, and we help our clients understand the number of resources that they require in order to make sure they've got the right number of resources in the right place at the right time to meet the demand and the workload that the organisation is asking that team to do. And we do that via a suite of analytical tools and techniques. We've got various different resource models that we will use, using the right tools that are appropriate for the question that's being asked at that time. Although we're based in the UK, our client base is very much worldwide. We've worked with over 20 emergency service organisations in Ontario, and we've recently completed a 10-year resourcing master plan for Waterloo Regional Paramedic Services. So we're very familiar with the setup of emergency services organisations across the world. In terms of the ask for the work that we're doing for Waterloo Regional Police Service at the moment, the findings that we're going to go through with you today, very much the start of a long-term journey and a long-term collaboration between ourselves and yourselves. The outputs from today very much focusing in the first instance on the patrol function within the organisation, but this is the start of a 3-year programme of work to apply those same tools and techniques across 3 key areas of the organisation, starting with patrol, as I say, starting at the beginning of next year, so January, February next year, we'll be coming back and looking at the investigative services area, and then through into 2027, applying those same tools and techniques to the communications centre. So gradually building up that picture and ensuring that we've got the right size, the right number of resources across the organisation in those 3 key areas of business. Further to that, because you're asking us to provide you with a 5-year resource plan in each of those 3 areas, unsurprisingly, some of that work needs to be based on a series of assumptions around how do we expect demand to change over that 5-year time period, how do we expect the workload and the workload allocations to change over that 5-year time period. Therefore, although the numbers that we will present today in terms of the 5-year requirement for patrol phase are correct as and of the assumptions that we've used in our baseline modelling, those may change over time. We are providing internal teams, so Mandy and the team within WRPS, with the methodology and the tools that we've used to create the numbers we'll see today, so that any changes in those assumptions can be attested internally by the team, can be adapted, and make sure that we keep a rolling eye on these recommendations as we go through that 5-year time period. So what have we been doing over the last 4 months? Actually, the first couple of months are spent very much understanding the past. Even though the ask is to provide obviously the forward-looking resource requirements for the next 5 years, we can't do that unless we've understood the workload that we've been asking of our patrol constables over the past 5 years. So we take a lot of historic data from the organisation, both in terms of raw demand, how many citizen-generated calls for services are there, what kind of service, what kind of call are they, where do they occur, when do they occur, that kind of detail. We also take account of the amount of resource time that's required for each of those jobs of work. So we're not just counting widgets. It's not just about saying number of jobs per person that a patrol officer can undertake. It's about understanding the workload that's associated with each of those jobs of work. Furthermore, we recognise that patrol constables don't just attend system-generated calls for service. The role of a patrol constable is much wider than that, including such things as ongoing crime investigation work, supporting major incidents, scene guards, cell watches, hospital watches, and so on and so forth. So we're trying to use all of that historic data in conjunction with, we came over to Waterloo and spent some time in session with all of the patrol constables across the organisation, a representative sample from each of the different divisions, to get their view on those items that perhaps aren't immediately prevalent in the data that's recorded. That enables us to build up a historic picture of the workload of a patrol constable. And what we found from that is demonstrably clear that patrol constables are busier in the last 2 years of our data set than they were at any point over the 5-year time period of that data set. The volume of work that we're asking our patrol constables to undertake has increased over the 5 years. The complexity of the work has increased, so the amount of time required to do each element of work has increased. So overall, that total amount of workload has increased significantly without an associated increase in the number of officers available to process the work. So that means they're busier than they ever have been before. We'll talk a little bit in this presentation about utilisation rates, a representation of the proportion of an officer's time that they spend on quantifiable workload. That has gone up and up over the 5 years and has reached a point, in our view and our experience, where it's at an unsustainable level for the individual's well-being and health and safety. Not only that, there's a direct correlation between how busy the officers are and how quickly the organisation can respond to those citizen-generated calls for service. And over that same 5-year time period, unsurprisingly, as our officers have got busier and busier, the average response times for priority 2 to 4 incidents have taken an associated increase in the average amount of time it's taking the organisation to get to those. So those two things very much going hand in hand. So what have we been doing to try to make sure that we address that in the future, to try to make sure that we right-size the organisation to manage the workload that's going to be coming through the door? We've got an analytical product, a resource model, if you like, called Response Profiler, and that allows us to do things, to do two things. One half of the model is a static calculator, so it allows us to populate the model with all of that historic data that we found, all of that historic understanding on what the workload of a patrol constable is, and calculate under sustainable and desired utilisation levels the number of patrol constables we would need in order to be able to process that workload. The other side of the model is then a predictive computer simulation model. So what that allows us to do is to run a scenario that says, okay, if we were to recruit and to employ the additional resource numbers that the calculation is suggesting that we need, what impact will that have on our capability to get to incidents in a timely manner? So it predicts the response times to incidents under any given scenario of demand, workload allocations, and resource numbers. So we're using these models to build up an analytical picture of the number of resources that we need. And we do that by working from the bottom up. So we've got proven methodology that enables us to take all of that historic data and calculate the number of patrol constables that we need. So say we start from the bottom up. So we start by understanding, well, what's the expected workload on any given shift? So therefore, how many officers do we need on that shift in order to be able to process that workload at a manageable level? And we do this at an average level, at an annual level, accepting that some days are busier than others, some days utilizations are going to be higher than others, officers are going to be busier on some shifts than on other shifts, but setting that recommended on-shift level to a level at which, over the course of a year, our officers are working at a sustainable and a manageable level of utilization. And we have sufficient resilience within that to be able to respond to emergencies within a timely manner. Once we've used that analytical approach to understand how many officers we need on shift at any given time, we then need to filter that into an equation that says, well, clearly not everybody turns up to all of the shifts that they're scheduled to do. So filter in an allowance for abstraction for officers to take time off for leave, training, sickness, and all the other reasons why officers might not turn up to any given shift. So we can take those on-shift staffing levels, allow for the watch-based system and the fact that this is a 24/7 environment, allow for the required abstraction rates on top of that, to get to a number of officers that will allow us to consistently deploy the recommended on-shift staffing levels that we've started with at the bottom of that calculation. What we've also done in this case is we've noted that historically, particularly over the last year or two, the levels of overtime for patrol constables within WRPS have been notably high. And in our view, that's because there hasn't been a large enough gap or a large enough allowance between the required levels of staffing on shift and the number of staff who've been employed. So we've not allowed for the full level of an abstraction rate. Rather than try to address this in one large step, which would lead to a sudden jump in the number of officers required and the difficulties that would give us in recruiting and finding those officers, we've taken a phased approach to increasing that abstraction rate year on year over our 5-year recommendations, so that over that same time period, we will see a gradual reduction in that reliance on overtime that we've seen over the last 2 or 3 years, so that by the time we get to year 5 of our recommendations, that's back down at a much more manageable level. But we've done it in a way that's achievable and sustainable, rather than assuming it can all be done in year 1. So that tells us the number of deployable officers we need, the number of patrol constables we would need to be turning up on a regular basis to perform the role of patrol constable. What we also find in all organisations is there's then an additional abstraction of members who will be nominally on the books of WRPS as a patrol constable, but for perfectly valid reasons aren't turning up to do the role of a patrol constable on a regular basis. So that will be for reasons of, I'm not deployable, I'm currently injured, so I'm on restrictive duties, so I can't go out and do a full response job. It'll be people who are on long-term abstractions, paternity leave, maternity leave, and it'll be officers who are currently acting up. So I might be currently employed as a patrol constable, but I'm currently backfilling a role as a sergeant in order to get that personal development for myself, but also to fill a gap that's currently in the sergeant role. So I'm currently acting up. And we need to allow for those abstractions as well as your more traditional abstractions if we're going to ensure that our organisation is right-sized. So we create our levels of resources required, as I say, working from the bottom up, but ultimately ending up with a single number for each of the years, which are the number of officers that we need to assign to our patrol constable cohort. So that's the methodology. What have we found when we've looked at our numbers, plugged all the numbers into those models and asked the model to come up with a recommended number of resources? Over the course of the next 5 years, we're recommending an increase in your budgeted number of patrol constables of 73. So by the time we get to 2030, we're recommending that budget is 73 patrol constables higher than it is at the moment. And that allows us to right-size the patrol division. That 73 actually hides three different things that are driving that increase. There's an increase in the numbers required to get the utilisation rate of our officers down, so to recognise the fact that we're busier than we've ever been, and that's not sustainable for our members. There's an increase that's needed to accommodate the predicted increase in demand that we would expect to see over the next 5 years. Population is growing, as we all know, and looking at the increase in demand that we might expect, there's going to be an associated increase in the number of patrol constables needed to deal with that. So that's the second element. And the third is to reduce that overtime, that historically high level of overtime that we've seen, to bring that down year on year. So that 73 constables isn't just to do one thing, it's to achieve three different elements to the calculation. When we created the numbers, the sort of the year-on-year numbers to get us to that overall 73 total, we looked at that as alongside the expected recruitment requirements over that same 5-year time period. Not only the numbers that we would need to accommodate any uplift to deal with the increase in demand or the reduction in overtime, but also to recognise the fact that, well, actually, we need to replace people who are leaving the organisation for either resigning or because they've reached retirement age. And what we were finding was that actually that variability in when the number of members who are becoming eligible for retirement, that's quite variable year on year due to some historic decisions made on funding, 25, 30 years ago. There were going to be some challenges with our year on year recommendations in terms of being able to run the recruitment process and be able to backfill in time. So those years where we were expecting a higher number of officers to leave due to retirement, we were going to struggle to be able to backfill to replace those purely from a recruitment capacity point of view. So what we've ended up doing is taking the 73 recommendation that was our overall 5-year requirement and effectively smoothing that requirement over the 5 years. So we're recommending that the budget increases by 9 patrol constables in 2026 and then 16 patrol constables every year thereon from 2027 through to 2030. So we've smoothed that overall increase. Still got that total budgetary increase of 73 that the detailed annual models came up with, but put that into the context of something that's achievable from a recruitment point of view. So why are we doing this? What kind of benefits might we expect to see? Two sides to that. First of all, if we right-size our patrol teams, then we'll be able to achieve a step change in improvement to our instant response, how quickly we respond to those citizen-generated calls for service. We can see from this chart here, actually, the average response to our priority 1 jobs doesn't change very well. You're very good at an organisation at prioritising those. If somebody calls you in absolute dire straits, needing a police officer to get there in a very quick time frame, you're very good at achieving that. Organisationally, very much prioritise that as you would expect. What we see is perhaps some of the slightly lower levels of priority calls that are coming in. So our priority 2 calls, we said at the start, when we look back, they've gone up and up and up. The priority 2 to 4s have gone up and up and up over the last 5 years. By right-sizing our organisation, we can effect a significant step change in that average response performance. So our baseline resource models that were based on 2024 data, we got to our priority 2 instance. The first unit arrived at that on average an hour and a half after the call came in. By getting that workload down to a manageable level, by making sure we've got the right number of patrol constables, we can improve that by best part of a third to get that average response time down to, in the longer term, less than an hour on average, bearing in mind that priority 2 cohort is around about 50% of the workload of the citizen-generated workload we're asking our officers to go to. So a notable change there for the citizens of the Waterloo region in how quickly they might expect to achieve a response if they call the police for support. The other side of the equation, and equally as important, is the impact on member wellbeing. So as we said at the start, having looked back at that 5-year data period, we concluded that patrol constables are currently working at a level that's unsustainable, and the impact that'll be having on mental health, stress, sickness, and wellbeing. So by reducing that to a level that is sustainable, that's going to improve life for our members. They're going to be happier. They're going to be better when they come to work. Morale will be higher, and sickness, we would hope, would reduce as a direct result of that. Furthermore, by having that little bit of extra resilience in the resourcing model, it enables those officers to provide a more visible presence to the communities, rather than always being tied up at a job, going job to job to job, or having to come back to the base to carry on with some paperwork. It means we've got a little bit more resilience in the system, more resource visibility of those officers as they're out and about in their vehicles, providing reassurance to the communities that they serve. So that's my 10-minute summary of sort of 4 months worth of fairly detailed analytical work. I guess the key takeaways is that the way in which we produce those recommendations is based on a robust analytical methodology. It's not just looking at a ratio of numbers of population that we need per person or number of jobs per person or anything like that. It's based on a full understanding of the workload that's gone before and enabling us to predict those resource requirements over the next 5 years. Open that out for any questions.
Chief, just before we go to the board, I had one question here, and it really is more beyond this report. This is actually like a book with 3 chapters, right? We're talking about investigative services today, patrol, but then we have a couple of others. Maybe just walk through, and based on, this is a much more data-driven model than when we 5 years ago discovered we were just severely understaffed and needed to make some, which I think was the right decision then. This is much more based on data, but maybe put the 3 pieces together, because I think this is we need to tell this story of making these investments strategically and based on data.
Thanks, Chair McLean, and thanks, Mark, for the presentation. Yeah, when we searched around the world for the best models, ORH provided us the best opportunity to create a multi-year staffing plan with some predictability, with some modeling that would allow us a fluid approach to staffing. But we recognized early on that we need to break it out into chapters, essentially. Chapter 1 being patrol first. That is the funnel of the organization. It is the response capacity that we require, and it really sets the stage for all other elements of the organization in terms of how we grow, how we adapt to the demands of our community. So today is the first of that chapter for patrol staffing. It does provide a 5-year landscape on a smoothed out approach to onboarding frontline patrol. But in the next year and the next chapter will be investigative services, looking at a mix of both responsive and proactive investigative services capacities. And then finally, the 3rd chapter is for communications. And the reason that we broke communications out further was to really understand the impacts of next generation 911 technology. Just having implemented that a couple of years ago, we're already starting to see some very fluid changes for how calls for services are entered into our capacities. So this is a multi-year journey. It's a multi-year story, and today is the first part of that.
Okay, questions from the board? Karen.
I find this new approach really exciting, and Chief, you've already reiterated what Mark Bryant said in his presentation, and we're moving away from representation by population. And my understanding is that we're going to internalize this method. So I guess I have 2 parts. Is this somewhat unique in police services that we would look at this kind of evidence-based approach? And I'm assuming that we will be tracking things like overtime and sick leave, see the impact that this approach has on the health and well-being and reduced response times for the population. I think this is really good, and if we take it inside, then we'll be able to. I guess it's sort of iterative and multidimensional it's dynamic as we go forward. I'm just wondering if you comment on, those that are accurate impressions from this presentation.
You're on mute, Chief.
Thanks, Chair Redmond. So I might lean on Mark just to speak to the experience that ORH has had across industries, but specific to police organizations, which was how this relationship came to be.
Yes, thanks, Chief. Absolutely, it's not unique by any means. So, as I say, our experience as an organisation is very much emergency services and resource planning for emergency services, and particularly in the UK, many of the 43 police forces in England and Wales have taken exactly the same approach as Waterloo Regional Police Service, either engaging us on a consultancy basis to support them in their resource planning, not just for patrol function, but across all areas of business, and you are at the forefront of the expansion of that into the Canadian world. So we're working currently with our first 3 Canadian police services. So we're working with yourselves and Niagara Regional and New Westminster Police Department in BC. And that's come about because of our collaboration with John and his team in terms of that experience of working with particularly emergency services, paramedic services in Ontario and in Canada, and that link between those 2 services, saying, look, these guys have done a great job for us for paramedics. They do the same thing for police services in the UK. Why don't we combine those 2 approaches and start to embed this into police organisations in Canada?
Okay. Any other questions? Administrations.
Thanks. I like this approach too. It's data driven but my question is, could you just speak a little bit to how it is set up to be specific to Waterloo region versus Westminster or somewhere else?
Very much so. So the resource model that we build starts off as a completely empty model, if you like, and we populate it with that 5 years of historic data that we've got. So all of that demand data that's gone in has been based on the information that we've taken out of Waterloo Regional Police Services systems. So we configure the model to make sure that not only has it got the demand volumes and the workload that we've seen from you, but also the processes and the almost like the rules of engagement that you employ. So how you're structured as an organisation with your 3 divisions, the fact that you've got the rural and the urban challenge, the model that we're putting together is very much mimicking the situation that you have as an organisation. Yes, we use the same modelling technique and the same base model in those other organisations, but we start the configuration process clearly with their data and their processes and their geographical structures. So we're kind of starting afresh with each organisation with which we work.
I think just to follow up on that. So there must be some underlying assumptions that apply to all the services everywhere, and we put in our own data.
At a very high level, yes. I guess the assumption is that there is some form of priority-based work streams that are coming in, and that in any form of patrol environment that has to be true. Your members of the public are calling for support. The organisation has a way of prioritising those or grading those into different levels and different response requirements in terms of timeliness and resource impact. So there's a recognition that we're mimicking that kind of queuing process, if you like, jobs coming in and waiting to be dealt with. But then there's also the recognition of that's not all that Patrol Constable does. So that there are various inputs within the resource model that say, okay, most of it focuses on these calls for service because that's the bit that we're trying to make sure we get to in a timely manner. But there are other elements to it to say, well, let's write down a list of all of the other tasks that our constables get involved with. And that's probably the bit that varies most from organisation to organisation, is where you find that cut-off point between where does the remit of a patrol constable end and investigative services start, for example. So picking ongoing crime investigation, some of that will stay with your patrol constable. The more serious stuff will move through to investigative services. Each organisation will have different levels of a threshold at which point that trigger gets passed. So the model allows us just to put in the level that's appropriate for the organisation we're working with.
I think that the key point is that it's not just loading it with your data and your geography, etc. We go through this very careful validation process to make sure that the model is a good replica of your operations, of WRPS operations. So when we load it, for example, with historical data, the historical number of officers, etc., and we run the model, does the model predict for that period that we know about similar levels of officer utilization, similar levels of performance? Because if the model is good at predicting a period that we know about, we can be confident that we can use the model to predict things that we don't know about. So what is the impact of those future demand increases, for example? So that validation process is really key to make sure that the model is an accurate reflection of your, as in WRPS operations, as opposed to New West or Niagara, etc.
Apologies, Jim.
No, I just had a comment. I'm really impressed with this whole program, especially like that now we're actually looking at the specifics of the people that we needed these spots, and we actually have the data why we need them, and also to Karen's point, to make sure that our officers are, they're not being overworked, but they have the time that they can to do all their investigations that they need to. And I'm really looking forward to, as Ian said, the next two chapters to this, because I really find it's really good for the public to see that we're not just throwing numbers into the wind and saying like we're gonna hire 150 officers, but it's data driven, in that this is so flexible too, that as the needs of our region grows, it can be adjusted as well. So thank you very much for that.
Karen Quigley Hobbs.
Yeah, mine is more a comment as well. What I like, as well as my colleagues have mentioned, is the flexibility and nimbleness that it will give the organization, so that if things were to shift or winds were to change, we have internal capacity to then use this model and framework to make recommendations to perhaps future service boards.
Okay, no further questions. There is a motion. Would someone move the motion that the board approve the 5-year hiring plan and adopt operational research and health or age recommendations of 72 formed constables by 2030 for control signed community policing, moved by Jim, seconded by Chair Redmond. Any further discussion? All those in favor? That's passed unanimously. Moving on, September 25th. Oh, thank you for your presentation today. Have a good day. 11.4, September 25th financial variance report. Kirsten is here to answer any questions, or is she done presentation, Chief?
It's a short one. Yeah, over to Kirsten. Thank you.
Thank you. Share my screen here. All right. Are you seeing the presentation screen?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Perfect. All right. So we have completed our
We see your
we see
smiling
you.
face, but not your presentation.
okay, sorry.
There we go.
There, sorry about that. All right, so we have completed the third quarter financial variance analysis, and the report is within your package. So first, I'll speak to the operating budget. September year to date, we are sitting at 94.5% of spend of the budget year to date. Based upon known information, recognizing that there could be various factors that could impact that to the end of the year, we are forecasting a positive surplus of $2.3 million or 0.9%, so just under 1%. The vast majority, over 90% of our budget, relates to staffing. So we do have a surplus year to date. The reason for that, it relates to unpaid maternity paternity leaves, the timing of civilian job evaluation, which will be processed fully in the fourth quarter, and at the beginning of the year, staffing levels being below authorized levels. I will note that as of October 1st, we are actually slightly above authorized levels for both civilian and sworn, and we are welcoming 17 new recruits on next Monday, I believe it is. So that will actually put a slightly higher than authorized complement going into next year, which will set us up very well for the 2026 budget. Overtime year to date is over budget by $2.8 million. This is primarily due to staff shortages. However, I will note that hours have reduced year over year by approximately 20%. We do see a positive variance year to date for benefits. That relates to the fact that salaries are lower, so some benefit categories will also be lower, like OMERS, but we did see spending lower than year to date for areas such as medical, extended medical, long-term disability, WSIB, partially offset by some higher dental costs. There's a number of variances both above and below budget. I'll just talk to a couple of the larger ones. So materials and supplies is under budget by about $800K to date. That relates to lower uniform replacement and timing of firearm supply purchases year to date, as well as we're seeing some savings for fuel costs. As you'll recall, the federal carbon tax was removed on April 1st. Services is under budget by about $900K. One of the major items in that relates to a negotiated reduction in our managed services contract for voice radio. And we're also seeing some lower investigative expenses than planned, partially offset by some higher insurance costs for cyber crime support. Fees are under budget by about $700K, and the areas that result or contribute towards that includes consulting, legal, and counseling expenses. And communication costs are under budget by about $800K as well. We're seeing lower cellular data costs for our in-car cameras, as well as with the delay in implementation of NG911, we did see some lower expenses related to some of those expenses as well. We're under budget for meetings, training, and conferences. On a revenue perspective, we are seeing higher volumes for record checks, paid duty, and some cost recovery for expenses incurred. And we've got a number of different items for ministry grants. We've got some timing items related to community and safety policing grant program. We saw some new grants or increased grants from what was included within the budget of about $300K. And lastly, the court security and prisoner transportation grant. The contract came in and it was $600K reduction from the previous year. So that will be a permanent negative impact on the full year. For capital, at this point, we have spent 43% of the budget. We're forecasting to spend 65% of the budget. We have purchased 62 vehicles. That's 60 replacement and 2 growth vehicles to support the growth in patrol. Just to touch upon a couple of our information technology projects, our automated asset and evidence management project. The automated equipment sign-out solution will be implemented at North Division. That's expected to bleed a little bit into 2026. It is already in place at Central Division, and our automated evidence locker solution will be implemented at South Division, again, already in place at Central. The replacement of the fingerprinting hardware and software was a 2-year plan, and that will be completed by the end of this year. We're also replacing some call recording hardware for the communication center, the Nice logger. The HRIS project has concluded. We completed the expansion of body-worn video into Central Division, and that was the last item within that project. Implementation of NG911 occurred. We continue to expand video conference capabilities across our facilities. And we also have a Ontario closed circuit television or CCTV project. About $100K of that is funded through a provincial government grant. And lastly, we did purchase some voice radio equipment to support the crime suppression analysis and response team. Facilities are a large component of our capital program. New Central Division will be getting solar panels installed. These will be carried forward into 2026. We completed the backup communication center on the 3rd floor, and we're in design for the renovations for the remainder of that space, which will be completed in 2026. We've installed electric vehicle charging stations, one at South for both public and employee use, and at Central Division to support our electric vehicle strategy. We continue with our security enhancements and have now officially replaced our end-of-life card access system. The UPS units for investigative services and South Division buildings, those both will be carried forward into 2026. The region facilities team is replacing our generators at headquarters and South Division, and so they want that project to be completed, which is categorized in our renewal projects. We continue within our design phase for the Public Safety Communication Center, expected to for move-in in 2029, and we also have some renewal type work for the community center. So to sum it up, from an operating and capital perspective, we are in a positive position. Thank you.
Okay, any questions? Okay, so the headline for me is that the year-end projection is, notwithstanding all the ins and outs, is about just a little bit over 2 million, which is less than 1%. And that's
Right.
that's the speed end of the year. Anything that's unspent in capital goes into reserves because needs to be spent on those things when we actually expend the money, correct?
Yeah, so any unspent capital, we do an analysis as to what monies need to be carried forward into 2026. And then what monies we no longer need, and about 300K we will no longer need, and we will be carrying forward monies into 2026 for certain projects.
Okay, thank you for that presentation. Just as a public service announcement, Chief, I think if we can, I'm going to look for a motion from the board to defer 11.9 Community Safety and Wellbeing Action Plan. Maybe we can do that next month. I know we're going to lose quorum at 1 o'clock, so we've got 35 minutes. We need to use them wisely. So can I get a motion to defer 11.9, moved by Jim, seconded by Karen? All those in favor? So we'll move that to next month. Maybe we can have the condensed version of the report, the next 3 reports, because I want to make sure we get to the budget resolution before we lose quorum here. So next up is, I think it's Traffic Services, Road Safety, Chief.
Yeah, thanks, Chair McLean. Yeah, and all the next 3 presenters have been asked to keep things short and sweet, and they're all part of the budget discussion. So the first one is a presentation by Staff Sergeant Scott Griffiths from our Traffic Services unit. So over to you, Scott. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. If I could ask Holly to start up the PowerPoint, that'd be great. If I could ask you to skip ahead a few slides, please, Holly, to the proposals slide right there. Thank you. Chair and members of the board, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Scott Griffiths. I'm the Staff Sergeant in charge of Waterloo Regional Police Traffic Services. I'm here today to discuss a proposal for 2026 to initiate a permanent road safety team within the Traffic Services unit. This proposal, along with the package included to you, discusses the establishment of a permanent road safety team within the Traffic Services unit. This unit would propose 6 sworn officers working on a rotating schedule. This team would take a data-driven approach to enforcement, would be responsive to public complaints priorities of municipal partners, and use all the available statistics we have at our disposal to be the most effective. These officers would be working on a rotating days and evening shift rotation that would allow them to address different types of road safety concerns, such as school zone safety, ride programs, as well as other special event type response. This unit would be responsive to our complaints process, which is driven by public complaints, and our own analysis of needs throughout the region. Next slide, please, Holly. The current status of our road safety team is that we have monthly safety teams that are staffed by seconded members from our community policing branch. The replacement of that with permanent members would demonstrate some organizational efficiencies that we'd be able to show in rather short order. We would have obviously a very reduced duplication of training. Any necessary specialized training would be limited to those members. It would remove pressure from our community policing partners as well as our scheduling team from having to arrange for multiple platoons or to analyze whether platoons were available to provide those members and give us some certainty in regards to their staffing availability. We would have efficiency in those officers given their job. They would be able to complete the necessary paperwork in a far more efficient and centralized manner. And we're looking for members who are very motivated and focused on road safety, and that should yield increased productivity from those members who are solely focused on road safety enforcement. Next slide, please. The road safety team proposal aligns with our commitment to the strategic business plan in several ways. One is to deliver exceptional services that meet community needs. Road safety remains one of the highest rated items of concern for members of the public. It is something that obviously we see on a daily basis through our complaints process, through my interactions with members of the public, as well as elected officials. This team will laser focus on those concerns and provide visibility for the public going forward. We're going to base our actions on evidence. The activities of this unit will be based on, again, complaint driven with analysis and data from other sources, such as our municipal partners, the region and the cities in regards to their STEP program locations, as well as our own internal analysis for collisions, as well as our own internal system for identifying locations of concern. And finally, we will be embracing modernization. With the establishment of this team will put us at the forefront of using data in its most accessible form to better the safety and of our roads and our road users by harnessing that data and with a team that's laser focused on providing that service to the public. Next slide, please. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you today, and I'm open to any questions you may have.
Thank you for the presentation, France.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. Given that ASC cameras need to come down the end of the week, I just wonder if there's been any discussion about any kind of additional financial support or some road safety items. I know that was some discussion from the province providing us with some additional funding for other ways to speeding. Excuse me.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not aware of any current discussion from the province in regards to additional funding for road safety, but I can tell you that road safety enforcement works as a complementary activity to not only safe road design and traffic management. So whatever monies may flow from the cancellation of the ASC towards road safety, we work in collaboration with our municipal and township partners to ensure that we are, obviously responding to those concerns, whether it's a infrastructure issue or whether it's an enforcement issue, and those go hand in hand. So we'll continue to do so.
Just a comment that, and I've said this many times, I think we all have the main concerns I get, like is from residents, is about traffic. And so really appreciate more focus and more attention for that, the better. And I hope that we do get some additional support
Thank you. Sure.
Just to tag on to Sandy's comments, we've watched, and so far there's been no funding announcements to deal with traffic faster and settlement areas. And I know you sort of did the fast forward, but it's really reassuring to see that this is data informed, and that is the basis of forming these special units. So I'm very interested to see these. It's a great effort. We really appreciate you bringing to us as information.
And I would just, to close, say the reports that we see, and it doesn't, it's some of it's in the township, some of it's in the cities of the outrageous speeds that people are driving. In one case, I think you reported 140 kilometers in a 60 zone or something like that. I mean, absolutely outrageous. And the physical, I mean, the accidents and the horrific nature of them are just, it speaks to the need to have this this is in place. So thank you for the presentation. We'll look forward to looking for that in the budget. Next is court security update. Inspector Turner, you're going to start this off, Chief?
Yeah, just as Inspector Terry Turner gets settled, she'll be providing an overview of recommendations for court security for WRPS. So over to you, Terry.
Good morning, and thank you, Chief and Chair McLean, for having me today to speak briefly about court security. I appreciate my slides being up there for me. We can go to the next slide there. Under Section 243 of the Community Safety and Policing Act, the board is legally required to provide court security, including security of our judges, maintaining premises security during hours when the judges and public are present, ensuring the secure custody of detainees, and determining appropriate levels of security for all of the above. Next slide. In August of this year, MAG released general recommendations regarding court security, including that a single entrance be established for members of the public accessing the courthouse. Anyone attending the courthouse be actively screened using a metal detector or security wands, and that we have a security presence on every floor of the courthouse with armed officers readily available to respond when necessary. Over the past several months, we have seen an increase in aggressive or violent outbursts in court. We have had complaints from our judiciary over concerns of lack of security or slow responses. We've had extra security court meetings called to address these concerns. We've had 3 bomb threats made to the courthouse in the last 3 months, all investigated and deemed unfounded. We had 2 incidents in July of the accused breaking the glass in the prisoner's box. One was able to scale the glass and actually ran at the justice before being subdued. Excuse me. We've had several duress alarms pushed by the judiciary in response to escalating behavior in courtrooms. We currently have 5 persons of interest identified with serious mental health conditions who are regularly attending court and causing issues. And in this area, we have seen a dramatic increase in mental health cases in the last 2 to 3 years. Our current staffing, we have 1 special constable at our provincial offences court. And we currently have 36 special constables along with 2 sworn police officers at the Waterloo Region Consolidated Courthouse. Looking forward, we are recommending adding 1 more special constable and 1 sworn officer to the provincial offences court, and adding 4 special constables and 1 more sworn officer at the consolidated courthouse here in Waterloo. The impact that this will have on the budget for 2026 for the additional FTEs and then taking into consideration the grant decrease is approximately 2 million year over year. And I'm happy to take any questions as well.
On that happy note, Karen Quigley-House.
So if I'm interpreting the chart correctly, thank you for the report. We're seeing increased expectations and decreased funding. from the province?
Exactly.
If I could add, and just this has been a point of concern and discussion with the board before, we continue to advocate locally, but also as a provincial body of chiefs for increased court security funding and consistent funding as well. So those conversations are ongoing at the provincial level, and I just want to reassure the board that if there is any funding model or injection of funds that come to us, we will adjust our budgeting accordingly. But we're at the critical point of needing to invest for safety, security, and capacity issues.
I'm wondering, Mr. Chair, if we should lend our voice to perhaps our Ontario Sport Association.
Yeah, I think this is one of those issues where we have several of them were things that are in our budget, and we're gonna get to the budget estimate recommendation. There are several things of which this looks like it's a provincial mandate and it's being put on the service. So, Karen?
If I can, just an additional question to Karen Quigley Hobbs. Sometimes it becomes like the Hunger Games, and I'm wondering, did the pie shrink, or did our piece of the pie shrink? Have other jurisdictions received less funding as well?
I'm glad Kirsten popped up because she has the right answer at
Yeah.
the right time. Yeah.
So the pot of money has not changed in many, many, many years. So we just received a smaller slice of the pie. And that was part of the resolution as well from the OACP, was that overall bucket of money needs to increase.
Yeah, so I think to your point, I think we should, and maybe I'll leave Megan to draft something for us. We need to tell them, you told us, the memo came out and said you have to do more, giving us instructions based on the act, and then give us less money to do it. So round hole in the square peg. So, Aaron.
I would think the judiciary would be all over support.
Yeah, well, of course, yeah. Okay, so let's take that offline. We'll bring something back that the board can, because that should be something we amplify for sure. It's clear as nose in the face, mandate and no funding for that. Any other questions? Okay, thank you for the presentation, and we move on. I'm not waiting. Thank you. Overtime committee update. Chief, over to you and Dr. John Fast, I think.
So we are in the hands of the board. I'm just noting the time, and I do believe this is doable, but just noting quorum. This is part of the budget presentation, but cutting to the chase, I mean, the overtime committee has recognized approximately 20% reduction over the course of the year. That's the presentation that we're about to have. I do wonder if we might jump to the operating capital budget estimate, and
I think that's a good suggestion. We apologize. We had a very extraordinarily long closed session. We have discussed this overtime actually in a couple of the previous ones on the staffing. We noticed some of that. So, and I think we've all read the report. My colleagues, we've had that in advance. We've read the report. Chief, if there's anything you really want to highlight there, that's fine. But otherwise, I do think we should get on to, sooner rather than later, getting the recommendation for budget estimate.
Yeah, that is my recommendation, that we just move to that, and if we have time, we can incorporate it and bring it back to another time. So,
okay, so we'll thank you for that, and we did see some of that in one of the previous report. So we're moving on to WRPS budget 2026. There's a motion, and this incorporates all the staff work, the public input sessions, a lot of the reports that we just saw. So there's a motion that Waterloo Regional Police Service Board approved the Waterloo Regional Police Service 2026 operating budget estimate, net levy of $272,610,413, and that the Waterloo Regional Police Board approved the 2026 capital budget estimate and the 2027 to 2035 capital forecast is summarized in Appendix C, subject to final adjustments for 2025 carry forwards. Is there a mover and a seconder for that?
So Chair McLean, we do have a short presentation to walk through, and at the end of the presentation, and it is brief, that does contain those recommendations or the motions.
Okay, the presentation.
If time allows, so just this has been a continuation of the October presentation of our budget estimates and recommendations, and as the board has been informed, this is a multi-month, all-consuming task that we're really striving to present the board and the public a sustainable path to adequate and effective police service delivery in Waterloo region, responding to community demands, looking at our legislative pressures and obligations as noted in the previous presentation, and always focusing on the efficiency and the improvement of the organization to ensure that every dollar, every hour that we spend as an organization is put to the best use. So you've heard about a multi-year staffing plan for frontline patrol service delivery. And we've also listened to community stakeholders through various points of public consultation, including 2 public input sessions. So as mentioned, the ORH provided recommendations for the expansion of some frontline patrol resources, and that is part of a multi-year staffing plan where in future years we'll hear about investigative service recommendations and also communication service delivery. And again, really trying to use an evidence-driven approach to all recommendations to the board. And so what has been laid out today in that consultant presentation was a recommendation to smooth out the onboarding of new frontline resources to the numbers displayed to the screen right now, looking at 9 dedicated patrol resources, and then an addition of 16 frontline patrol resources over the course of the next 5 years to a total of 73 individual officers. So that is part of the future staffing plan recommendations with more details and more recommendations to come. We just wanted to reinforce this is part of the story. So what we hope to achieve in time is greater efficiency, most predominantly for our response times to the community. So this is one of the metrics and KPIs that the board and the public will hear from moving forward is how are our resources being put to good use? And as we onboard additional resources over time, how can we look at improving things like call for service response across all of our urban and rural communities, as well as efficiencies in our case clearance and in charging capacity. So I'll hand it over to Kirsten for the tail end.
Great. So these numbers did not change from your report in October. The proposed operating budget estimate is $272.6 million, which represents a $20 million increase year over year or 7.98%. Based upon the assessment growth of 1.15%, that represents a tax impact on the WRPS portion of the property tax bill of 6.75%. Thank you. Next slide, please. This includes 28 new sworn officers, 13 to frontline patrol services. So that includes your 9 from the ORH recommendations for patrol constables, 2 superintendents so that each division has a dedicated patrol superintendent, and 2 street crimes officers to complete the rollout of crime suppression at all divisions. 6 investigative services, FTEs, and 6 dedicated road safety team, 2 to court security, 0.5, so would be hired halfway through the year, 4 public safety team, and 0.5 for organizational culture. If you're trying to make the math work to the report, the chart in your report, there was 2 sworn positions that ceased throughout the year, and that's one was due to a secondment ending towards the beginning of the year, and one was the civilianization of a position. Next slide, please. So the primary budget drivers, again, this information did not change from October. Each of these items, if you added it up, would get to your 7.98%. In the subsequent slides, I'll talk briefly on each one of those. Next slide, please. The first one is core policing. The largest component of that relates to contractual adjustments. So that would include things such as cost of living expenses, premium adjustments, as well as savings realized from the recent bargaining work. Increases in benefit costs such as WSIB, extended health, retiree benefits, and the fact that as higher salaries increase, some benefit costs also increase. Non-expansion staffing costs, so that relates to FTEs that were added for our emergency services cooperative, ESCO, formerly called PRIDE, cost recovery model that provides technology to other police services and fire agencies. Our voice radio cost recovery model that provides voice radio technology to the region, and our active staffing strategy, which was started in the budget process last year and includes 3 positions added in order to backfill members off on WSIB. There is some technical investments for software, technology, training, AI, security, and inflationary impacts. We also saw some costs increase related to rent, legal, consulting, fleet maintenance. And lastly, we did see some revenues increase due to our ESCO group, volume of record checks, paid duties, and grants. So all of this combined increased the budget 9.6 million year over year. Next slide, please. So the base staffing expansion, I did talk a bit about this on the previous slide, so I won't repeat the information. But the other piece is the civilian support expansion component for any additional civilian and actually sworn positions. People had to complete business cases and look at things such as alternative service delivery, workload analysis. I will note that over 20 requests came in for civilians, 13 moved forward, which included 2 cadets to allow for 1 cadet per division per platoon, some enhancements for records management and digital disclosure, tech modernization, and cybercrime resources. So all of this equated to 4.6 million increase year over year. Next slide, please. We also continue to ensure that we have adequate reserve balances to maintain our current facilities, fleet, and equipment while reducing our reliance on debt. So that includes ensuring that we have appropriate reserves to fund our capital program. So we did see increases in our capital reserves, about $2.5 million, and that also includes putting money away in partnership with the region towards the replacement of the voice radio system. And then the other piece is ensuring that we have reserves that can meet future liabilities. So there's 2 that we've talked about when we've done our annual review of reserves: sick leave and future employment benefits reserve, where there are fairly significant gaps to the liability. So we also increased the contributions by about $500K year over year as well. So both of those combined equated to 2.9 increase year over year. Next slide, please. Inspector Terry Turner gave you a great overview of the expansion related to court security. So that's the 5 special constables and 2 sworn members, and that impacted the budget year over year by 2 million. And next slide, please. Again, Staff Sergeant Griffiths gave you a great overview on the expansion related to a dedicated road safety team. So that's 6 sworn officers, and that equates to 1.2 million increase year over year. Next slide, please. And this is the last item. So this is monies that are included within our budget that provide support to the region as a whole. The main area that this would include would be the 911 communication center, dispatch services for municipal bylaw, supporting the region of Waterloo community safety well-being plan, and support of regional municipal emergency management. Overall, between our operating and capital budgets, approximately 9 million is included to support these initiatives. And we did work with the cities and North Dumfries to provide a dedicated bylaw dispatch model in 2026. So we will be starting a cost recovery process with them. And so as a result of that, it did actually decrease the amount of money within the operating budget year over year by 144K. Next slide, please. To touch upon the 2026 proposed capital budget, the changes from the report in October included re-looking through the Q3 financial variance process at the monies that would be carried forward from 2025 into 2026. So those numbers were updated. We also reduced the monies per year for CCTV capital projects from 330K to 250K. And we also concluded our engagement with the RDC consultant to inform the region's RDC bylaw update in 2026. So as a result, there was monies over the 10 years that shifted from tax levy debentures of about $50 million onto the RDC side. 48 million of it related to RDC debt, given the fact that collections would not occur till later on, and $1.3 million from the RDC reserve. And we continue to work with the region to look at how we can reduce debt across the 10 years. So you'll see from the slide some of the major components. Fleet related to 68 vehicle purchases. Information technology is the continued implementation of the automated equipment and evidence management locker system, supporting ESCO projects, CCTV, replacement of equipment, and our facilities additions and refresh, of which the two major projects in that area is the Public Safety Communication Center and the renovations of the third floor at Central. Next slide, please. So there's two motions before you today. The first is that you approve the operating budget estimate net levy of $272,610,412. And the second motion is that you approve the 2026 capital budget estimate and the 2027 to 2035 capital forecast as summarized in Appendix C, subject to final adjustments at year end for 2025 carry forwards. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. I think that pulls that all the reports we've had over the last day. And any questions, Kirsten? Any final thoughts, Chief? And then we'll move to the motion.
None from me. Thank you.
Okay, there is the two motions. Is someone prepared to move the motion? From Jim, seconded by Hobbs. Any comment? That's where I look. Any comments? Board? If not, all those in favor? That's passed unanimously. Next steps, Chief. Are we present? I think on the 18th, the Regional Council or something.
November 26th to Regional Council, and then any input will come back to the board, and then in early December there'll be that final consideration to the board and to Regional Council.
Chair Redmond.
Yeah, if I can just comment, and I'm happy to support both the motions that we managed. It is really heartening to hear that WRPS and our excellent staff are working regional water. They're looking at ways to make some of the costs on a go forward basis, not for the next budget or subsequent. So thank you very much for continuing to work lockstep.
And just before we wrap, I think it was one motion, but there are two aspects of it. That's the way it was written here, Megan. One motion involves both capital and operating. That's the motion that's written here. So we've done that. Okay, Chief, you've got 2 minutes and 50. I'm sorry, you get over to you for.
I will close, and if any board members need to depart, please feel free, and I'll be brief. So if you could just give me one moment. Okay, so I'm very proud to present the monthly Chief of Police report for October. And to be brief, we've had some amazing investigative work take place. So the resolution of 2 shooting investigations. The one dates back to a May 2024 shooting investigation in Waterloo, where the gathering of evidence over time led us to the conclusion of a shooting investigation that took many months and took us into the province of Manitoba, where the suspect was eventually found. The second resolution in the past month was for a homicide investigation that occurred on Lima Crescent in Cambridge back in November of 2024. Again, tenacious, excellent investigative work, and the collection of physical digital witness information. All this evidence led to the conclusion where a 37-year-old male has been charged with second-degree murder and homicide. Looking at our total crime suppression efforts, year to date, we've had 14 shootings in Waterloo Region in 2025. This is a 26% decrease compared to the 19 shootings we had year to date in 2024. And looking at our homicide tracking, the past 6 years, we've had an average of 5 homicides a year and 5 attempt homicides a year. Last year, our 5 homicides involved 4 shootings. This year, of the 2 homicides verified, we've yet to have firearms involved. So this is a long discussion and a long picture, but we're very proud of the crime suppression efforts and the focus on firearm work across the region of Waterloo, across our frontline investigative teams. Looking at road safety, displayed are the total number of charges for the month of October. Focusing on the fatal 4, it stands out, as was mentioned earlier, about the incredible level of speeding on our roadways, looking at 49 stunt driving charges. So that's 40 or 50 kilometers over the posted speeding limit, leading to suspension and or vehicle seizure in those cases. Very proud to have hosted a commercial motor vehicle modified unsafe vehicle course recently for 11 police services across Ontario. And in a short burst of activity, we seized, 20 vehicles were determined to be unfit, and plates were seized off of those vehicles in the immersion of this work on the street. So as members of our public are gearing up for winter driving for the next number of months, we recommend that those fitness checks be done on vehicles to ensure that everyone is safe on our roadways. Switching gears, very proud to have welcomed Deputy Chief John Goodman to the executive leadership team. 31 years of dedicated service to our community. Very proud to welcome him aboard officially to this role, and he now oversees our community policing division, joining many others across our community to welcome him and congratulate him in that role. Very also proud to have welcomed a new class, number 120. We had a great ceremony down in Cambridge at the Langs facility to welcome those new officers, and they are already hitting the ground running in their frontline immersion and training right now with their field development officers in our training unit. We're also proud to continue our relationship with an amazing organization called Not in My City. Our community will, in the coming months, see more of this branding of Not in My City. It's a dedication to our commitment to ending human trafficking, led by the founder, Paul Brandt, a country music star known to many, was in our community within the last month, and he held a mini launch of this campaign. So our community partners will be taking up the cause with us as we look to immerse this campaign across many institutions and fixtures across Waterloo Region. And also we're hosting some public input sessions, one held tonight and a couple in the next week, both virtually and in person, for our CCTV and automated license plate reader initiative. So we look forward to engaging, answering questions, and addressing issues of intrigue and concern from the community as we look to the next steps of deployment of technology in our community. Our websites and social media contain more information about this opportunity. And throughout the month of October, heading into November, we're as busy as ever, celebrating, engaging, and joining with our community across so many great initiatives. So thank you very much to our members and their dedicated service to the community and to the board for your support. If there's any questions or concerns, that's the monthly Chief of Police report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief, and congratulations to Deputy Chief Goodman. And I just have one quick question. Is it true that Sherry Greeno is the #1 fan of Mr. Brandt? Because it seemed like she was thrilled to have him here in the building.
He's an amazing artist, but an amazing champion for human trafficking. So it's a great partnership, and we're very proud of that connection. And it was very great to have him in our region.
Okay, just as we wrap up, we'll look for motion to adjourn from any media. I think our Chief and I will be available immediately following. There's a link that would have been provided to you. With that, thank you for staff and Chief and his team and our board meeting today. Thank you for your patience and we got through a lot today. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Moved by Chair Redmond, seconded by Mayor Shantz. All those in favor? That's moved, passed unanimously.